Picture this: a banquet hall glowing under golden chandeliers, the polished marble floors reflecting firelight from 100 candles. The scent of roasted pheasants and spiced wine fills the air, but beneath it lingers something sour, the nervous sweat of men and women who dare not breathe too loudly. The hall is alive with laughter, but the laughter is forced, echoing too sharply against stone walls, like brittle glass about to shatter. And there he sits, Ferdinand VII, King of Spain. Velvet drapes across his bloated frame, jewels glitter at his throat, and yet his face is a mask, a false majesty stretched thin over cruelty. His eyes sweep the room, searching not for loyalty, but for weakness. You feel the tremor in your hand as you lift a goblet, praying his gaze does not fall on you. Because everyone in this room knows, when the king grows restless, someone will be humiliated, someone will be broken. This wasn't salvation. This wasn't the monarch Spain had longed for during its years of war and despair. This was a court of shadows where power was theatre and cruelty was entertainment. Spain had prayed for deliverance, and in return, it was given a tyrant. A man who wrapped himself in velvet and gold, but who reigned through humiliation, perversion, and fear. The question rises, even now. What happens to a nation when its crown belongs not to a leader, but to a sadist? The palace was his cradle, but it was never his home. Marble corridors echoed with prayers, but not affection. You imagine yourself as a child, wrapped in silks that scratch against your skin, walking halls lit by flickering candles that cast more shadows than light. Every door hides a listener. Every smile hides a trap. From the very beginning, Ferdinand was less a boy and more a pawn. Courtiers whispered about him in the corners, their quills scratching like daggers on parchment. You hear them plotting alliances, breaking them, shifting loyalties like pieces on a chessboard. The air smells of candle wax, ink, and stale incense, power disguised as piety. Instead of love, he breathed suspicion. Instead of trust, he learned envy. The lessons drilled into him were not lessons of duty or sacrifice, but of survival through manipulation. Every humiliation etched resentment deeper into his young heart. Every betrayal taught him that cruelty was safer than kindness. Spain longed for a noble heir, a prince of light. What it received was a boy growing into darkness, a child already rotting with jealousy and bitterness before he even wore the crown. And here lies the paradox. A nation's hope was raised in shadows, fed on poison, and prepared to give nothing back. What kind of king can a child like that become? The streets of Spain burn. You hear the clash of steel and the screams of peasants who carry pitchforks instead of muskets. Church bells toll like funeral drums, their iron voices swallowed by the thunder of French cannons. Mothers press their children to their chests as smoke thickens in the air. The stench of gunpowder, sweat, and blood clings to every narrow street. And yet, through this nightmare, a name rises on the lips of the people. Ferdinand, el deseado, the desired one. He becomes a chant, a prayer, a fragile hope that somehow this prince will save them from Napoleon's grip. But picture this. While Spain bleeds, Ferdinand bargains. While peasants die in ditches, their king-in-waiting dines in French custody. He whispers to Napoleon, desperate to secure his own survival. By day, people die in his name. By night, he trades their future for his comfort. This wasn't courage. This wasn't leadership. This was betrayal wrapped in velvet. You stand in the ruins of a Spanish village, burnt wood still smoking, bodies carried to shallow graves. And you wonder, what does it mean when a nation's hope is a man who has already abandoned it? Spain sacrificed everything, its blood, its faith, its children, for a savior who was never coming. And in the silence left by his absence, you begin to see the truth. Sometimes the greatest enemy is not the one who invades from outside, but the one who surrenders from within. The war is over. Cannons fall silent. Drums of victory echo across Europe, and Spain, exhausted, wounded, and waiting, turns its eyes toward the returning king. Crowds pack the streets. Flowers rain down like blessings. Women cry with relief. Men shout with hope, and children chant one name above all others: El Deseado, the desired one. But the promise is short-lived. Within weeks, joy curdles into silence. The Constitution of 1812, Spain's fragile breath of liberty, is torn apart. Imagine the ripping of paper echoing through printing halls. Presses go dark, their iron arms frozen mid-motion. The voices of free men are dragged into dungeons, their screams swallowed by stone walls. The sweet perfume of roses is replaced with the rot of damp cells, rusted chains, and blood on cold stone floors. This wasn't restoration. It was strangulation. Ferdinand VII, once hailed as savior, now revels in betrayal. Reformers fill his prisons, intellectuals vanish into exile, and whispers of hope are punished with the whip. Those who dared to dream of freedom find their dreams shackled. By day, he parades his piety. Kneeling before church altars, he clasps rosaries with trembling hands, his face bathed in candlelight. By night, he signs death warrants with the same steady fingers. Priests bless him as holy. Victims curse him as butcher. His power rests not on love, but on fear, and he rewards cruelty with gold, elevating torturers to thrones of privilege. Spain had embraced a savior, but unmasked a tyrant. The desired one had become the despised one. And here lies the bitter lesson. When nations place blind faith in kings, when they confuse crowns with salvation, betrayal is inevitable. The story of Ferdinand is not just Spain's wound, it is a mirror. Look closely, and you will see the same masks worn by rulers today. Leaders who preach faith by day and profit from suffering by night. Men who promise salvation, but deliver only chains. The palace glitters in candlelight, chandeliers dripping with gold, walls heavy with velvet. But beneath this splendor lies rot. Servants know it. Courtiers whisper it. Every night, the royal chambers become a theater of cruelty. Behind closed doors, humiliation is ritualized. Courtiers are summoned and ordered to perform degrading spectacles, not for honor, not for loyalty, but for the king's amusement. Men of rank forced into grotesque pantomimes. Women reduced to pawns in twisted games. Their dignity stripped while Ferdinand watches with cold delight. Servants tremble at the sound of his footsteps, never knowing if they will be mocked, beaten, or used as props in his perverse entertainment. By day, he parades himself as the Catholic king. He kneels at altars, incense curling in the air, lips murmuring prayers that echo through cathedral halls. But by night, that incense is replaced by the smell of sweat, fear, and humiliation. The paradox is unbearable. Hymns in the morning, screams by nightfall. This wasn't discipline, it was entertainment through suffering. And the court played along, some out of fear, others out of ambition, hoping their loyalty and cruelty would buy them favor. Ferdinand rewarded the vicious, elevating predators and silencing the humane. A system of corruption and sadism metastasized until Spain itself became hostage to the king's depravity. You might ask, how could an entire court bow to such perversion? But power bends men. When survival depends on obedience, even cruelty can masquerade as loyalty. Spain saw only the surface, a monarch cloaked in holiness, a ruler blessed by priests. But the palace walls concealed a predator who turned human, suffering into spectacle. And this duality is not confined to the past. Look at leaders today who drape themselves in religion, morality, or patriotism, while hiding corruption and abuse behind closed doors. Their altars are public, but their cruelty is private. Ferdinand's court is a mirror, a warning of how easily a throne can become a stage for perversion when no one dares to speak the truth. The fields lie barren, crops wither in the sun, soil cracked and dry. Villages smell of hunger, smoke from empty hearths, sour bread, stale air in cottages where families starve. Mothers quiet their children with silence because there is no food left to give. Spain is collapsing. Trade routes broken, fleets gone, armies defeated. One by one, the Latin American colonies tear themselves free. Mexico, Venezuela, Argentina, Chile. Each loss slices into Spain's empire like a blade, bleeding wealth, prestige, and hope, and yet in the capital the contrast is obscene. While peasants beg for crumbs, Ferdinand dines on feasts. Tables groan with meat, silver goblets overflow with wine, music fills gilded halls. Courtiers laugh while farmers bury their dead. A kingdom rots, but the king consumes. This wasn't neglect. It was indulgence at the expense of millions. Spain's economy fractures. Debt rises, famine spreads, industry collapses. The people pay in hunger, in grief, in despair. But Ferdinand refuses reform, refuses sacrifice. Instead, he clings to luxury, cloaking decay with pageantry. The macro and the micro blur. Millions suffer. One man indulges. Entire provinces starve, while the king's hounds are fattened on meat. Soldiers bleed on foreign soil, but their monarch bathes in perfumes. The tragedy is total. Spain sacrifices, and its king devours. And yet, this pattern is not just history. It is a cycle. Even today, broken nations carry the weight of corrupt leaders. Economies collapse while palaces shine. Families starve while rulers dine. The story of Spain's broken body is not confined to the 19th century. It is repeated wherever power feeds on suffering. The question remains, how many times will the world watch this cycle repeat before it finally breaks? The royal bedchamber reeks of decay. Curtains drawn tight, air thick with sweat, rot, and sickness. Servants move in silence, afraid even to breathe too loudly, as if the faintest sound might shatter the fragile thread keeping Ferdinand alive. On the bed lies the king, bloated, pale, gasping. Every breath is a rasp, wet and heavy, like lungs drowning from within. His once commanding voice is reduced to whimpers, his eyes darting with terror. This is the man who condemned others, who preached judgment from altars. Now he fears the very judgment he invoked. Doctors stand helpless, priests whisper prayers, but no ritual, no sacrament, no holy relic can mask the truth. The king is rotting before their eyes. His body is a prison of pain, his soul trapped in dread. This is not a majestic passing. This is decay embodied. And when death finally comes, there is no grief in the palace halls, no mourning in the streets, no cries of despair from the people, only silence and relief. The tyrant who called himself king dies unloved, cursed in whispers even as priests pretend to honor him. You may ask yourself, how many rulers end like this, surrounded by gold, yet dying in terror, unloved by the very people they ruled? Ferdinand's death is a reminder that power cannot buy dignity, and cruelty cannot command love. Even today, tyrants fall the same way. Their wealth cannot silence the rot inside them. Their crowns cannot erase the curse of their people's memory. Ferdinand's final breath is not the end of his story. It is the beginning of his condemnation. Spain is silent, but not at peace. The tyrant is gone, yet his shadow lingers. The fields remain barren, villages hollowed by famine. Ships rot in harbors once filled with the wealth of empire. Colonies have broken free, leaving Spain diminished, its reach shriveled. Instead of unity after the king's death, the nation fractures further. Rivalries ignite. Families divide. Brothers turn against brothers in the Carlist wars, blood soaking into soil already stained by hunger. Smoke rises from villages as civil strife spreads. The people who once dreamed of empire now fight one another, tearing apart what little remains. This is Ferdinand's legacy. Not glory, not power, but ruin. His corruption accelerated the collapse of a kingdom that could not bear the weight of his cruelty. The throne is empty, but the damage endures. The empire is gone. The people are broken. Spain, once feared across oceans, is now a wounded body, staggering into the future. You might wonder, was it one man who destroyed a nation, or a nation that allowed one man to destroy it? The truth lies somewhere in between. His tyranny was not isolated. It infected the system, and the system obeyed. And here is the modern mirror. Nations today still bear scars of rulers who indulged themselves while their people starved. Civil wars erupt not only from hunger, but from the corruption of leaders who consume their nation's lifeblood. Ferdinand may be gone, but his shadow stretches across centuries. Spain's empire ended not with triumph, but with ashes. And the silence that followed his death was not peace. It was the silence of a kingdom in ruins. Centuries have passed, but the echoes of Ferdinand's reign still resonate. Empires crumble, families suffer, and nations bend under the weight of rulers who place personal desire above duty. You see it even today. Leaders who cloak greed in piety, indulgence in patriotism, cruelty in law. Ferdinand VII's cruelty is not a relic, it is a mirror. His bloated body, his terrorized court, his starving people, they all speak across time. The same patterns repeat: unchecked authority, public devotion, masking private corruption, systems designed to protect power rather than the vulnerable. What would you do if the people entrusted to you depended on your virtue, and instead you fed your appetite for indulgence? Spain's ruin teaches that moral failure at the top infects every layer of society. One man's selfishness became a nation's wound. One tyrant's pleasure became thousands of lives lost, countless dreams crushed. History carved this warning in stone. Power without accountability corrodes everything it touches. Faith, family, nation. It waits quietly, ready to repeat. The question lingers in the air, uncomfortably familiar. Will we recognize the next Ferdinand before it is too late? Or will another generation be forced to learn the lesson of power in blood and silence, as Spain once did?